Here we go. Welcome everybody to the Social Society. I'm Joe Reese Jr. Welcome to the episode. Today we are talking about crowdfunding. I know it's a hot topic for filmmakers, but also just startup businesses, other social media marketers like to know how to work in the area. So I thought I'd bring on a crowdfunding strategist named Kasia Kruk. I just wanted to thank you for being here first off, and just a little bit of an intro about how we met and know each other. We first initially met offline through a group of ours that we're part of, through our mentorship with one wonderful Rachel Peterson. And then we actually met in person in New York City through that as well. But I was there for the Manhattan Film Festival, and we thought we'd meet up, introduce ourselves, and hang out a bit. So it was nice. It was great to get to know you, Kasia. Introduce yourself. Tell us what it is exactly that you do, and then we'll kind of go into the story about crowdfunding.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm honored. And yes, and hello, everybody. Yes, as Joe said, I'm a crowdfunding strategist. So what I do help filmmakers or art creators design their crowdfunding projects. And basically, it depends on what stage their crowdfunding projects are, but I plan with them. I either collaborate closely, manage the campaign, or I advise on different aspects of the campaign. So
sure.
Basically, that's what it comes down to.
Awesome. Well, and you have your own company, correct? Or do you work for your own company, Chime? And you've been kind of, well, you got kind of started in how did you get started in the film industry to begin with?
Oh, it's a good question, and it's a long story. I'll try to make it short. So yes, I actually started off as an actress, which I rarely talk about. But I mean, there is no shame in it. It's just that I didn't I really didn't pursue that. And when I came to New York, and almost at the very beginning, I started collaborating with the New York Polish Film Festival. I volunteered as a event coordinator, and it exposed me to the film world and filmmakers. And I had always wanted to work in film, and it was an easier way because I got to meet filmmakers. We started collaborating. I started learning skills and getting on different projects here in New York primarily, but also collaborating with filmmakers back in Poland because I'm originally from Poland. And that exposure I was talking about through the film festival exposed me to filmmakers from there. And gradually, I started working on different film projects, mainly in the capacity of producer, co-producer, writer. And then for my own projects, it was, I believe, 2011, someone told me about Kickstarter. At the time, nobody knew of a Kickstarter. It was a rogue and mysterious platform. But we desperately needed money, as we all do, independent filmmakers. And I did it, and it worked. And then I did it again, and it worked. And that's how I started doing it. I kind of fell into it, but I absolutely love doing it.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. It's always interesting to hear people's stories about how they get started in different professions, and almost always it was never the intention. Yes. You know, if it's something that goes well, it never started off as the intention.
That's true. That's true. I'm a living proof of that.
Yeah. So let's kind of go into it and talk about what goes into the crowdfunding campaign. What is the first step? What should everybody do first before they do anything?
It's an amazing question. There are many steps. And then depending actually on the phase of your project, or depending on how much time you have. I would say ideally you should have, or you should allow yourself to have as much time as possible for the pre-launch. The pre-launch is the time before the campaign where you do all the preparation. So I would say 8 weeks is perfect. 6 weeks is the bare minimum. 1 week is unacceptable, but sometimes 3 months is an ideal, I would say, scenario. But what sometimes happens, we all know, especially in the world of independent filmmaking, that sometimes there is a window that opens up and you can only get a crew at that particular time. And you have to raise money, right? And you do not have the privilege of spending 3 months preparing and then running a campaign for another 4 weeks, for example. Sure. But I would say it doesn't matter how much time you have to prepare. I would say creating or building your community, or if you are lucky enough, maybe it's not about luck, but if you do already have the existing community, I would say make your community aware of your steps, but not only of your efforts, but not only of the efforts towards the crowdfunding campaign, but also I would start in an organized and structured way. I would start communicating with my community, with my audience, releasing information gradually about what you're doing, what your goal is, what your motivation is, what drives you, and basically reporting back to them, but also engaging them and creating a true community and communication, so that when the campaign, the launch day arrives, or before, they will follow you. So the idea is to create a fan base, or at least to make your community aware of your efforts so that they'll show up for you on the first day. And this showing up on the first day is very important, because I would say the most important things for a crowdfunding campaign is to have a very strong start. So on that first day, ideally, you should raise 30% of your funding goal, which is a lot. But if you have that time, or if you take certain steps, you can in a way manufacture that. And this percentage, I would say first portion, should come and will come, and most likely, and always when it comes to most of the creators, come from your family or friends, basically from your community, or people who were aware of the project.
So I guess speaking on that, it's very important then to set up, just like in anything else in social media management, we talk about having a plan to follow.
Exactly.
So it's probably very important to sit down with the director, producer, and everybody, and have a plan in place.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yes, a plan, and devising a plan, a community, a team. Right. I would say that having a team is very important. Even if you work with someone, or if you ask someone for advice, I would say that it's almost impossible to run a campaign on your own. So as you actually pointed out, to have a plan and to devise and schedule all the communications. So the communications with your community, or the communications with press, you may want to contact press ahead of time, because journalists have their own schedule as well, and no one can write overnight for you. And being mentioned by a blogger or by some kind of journalist in a particular genre is extremely helpful.
Nice. So what are the best ways to engage and keep your crowd engaged throughout the campaign?
Throughout the campaign, right? So it's, in a way, it's similar to what you do before the campaign, but I would say that it's more intense or more frequent. I would say that it's a must to have a social media account, and I would advise creating a specific account for the project. And I would do it, I would say following two avenues. through social media account, for example, Facebook, and Facebook is a good choice. Of course, it depends on your audience, but most of the pledges actually come from Facebook. That's the statistic. So I would say Facebook is a good choice. So what do? You post information on the progress, but what kind of progress? For example, you had a production meeting with a set designer. Snap some pictures and post it on Facebook. And I don't know, you had a meeting with casting agent, do the same. Then say that your project covers or revolves around a certain issue. And if there are articles related to that issue or people who have certain opinions or influencers, I would definitely post this kind of information. And especially when it comes to crowdfunding for art projects, it's different from a physical product. I would say I can speak for myself. I really like to know, in a way, I wish to get into the head of a creator. So please allow your audience, like open yourself up a little bit and invite them into your world and talk about, for example, do Facebook Lives on a regular basis in a form of vlogs, say once a week or twice a week. So people could look forward to something and talk about things around the campaign. Not only exactly, that's one thing that I would avoid is, hey, help us, donate every day. It gets old and it's not about that. So talk about the progress on the campaign, progress on report the milestones, but also talk about the progress on the campaign and on the project, and talk about yourselves, talk about your idiosyncrasies, talk about, what you did as a child, talk about how it all started. And as hard as it gets, I would get a little bit vulnerable in front of your audience, because this I would say is the foundation for a true relationship, which you need during the campaign.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think it just goes into the whole social media mix in general. People want to engage with real. They want to be, they want to feel included. They want to feel like you're not out of reach to them. So that's a very good way to think about it. That's awesome. I didn't really put that together as far as crowdfunding goes, but it makes sense that would be very useful and very important to do. Are there some specific mistakes you can avoid within crowdfunding to ensure your success?
Yes, absolutely. There are many things that I would avoid doing. First of all, I've been there, not personally, but I've met or I've spoken with filmmakers who had amazing project, an amazing idea, an amazing pitch video, and they didn't tell anyone about it until the day of the campaign launched. So I would say put yourself on the radar, do not stay hidden, right? So then I would say a mistake would be to miscalculate your funding goal.
Yeah.
So I know that there are certain needs and there is a budget and it comes from somewhere, but I would be very careful. I would say, I know that it might be nerve-wracking. There is a formula actually, and there is a formula for everything, but I would say I would always suggest lowering the goal, because there is no better advertising for a campaign than a funded campaign, a campaign that gets funded before the deadline. So I would be careful and I would not go too high, and it's much easier. Why? Because it's easier to excite people about something that is already successful, and I think it's pure human psychology. We like to get associated with something that is successful.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Because it could be a misconception. Some people might think, oh, it's already funded, so who is going to fund? Actually, it's not true. People get excited because they want your project to happen, and they care about what you talk about. You become a voice for them. So definitely, I would calculate the goal carefully, and the goal that you set up on your crowdfunding campaign does not necessarily have to reflect your real goal. As much as counterintuitive it sounds.
Okay. No, it makes sense. It's almost like building brand recognition. You know, people are more likely to engage and interact with you if everybody else is doing it already, so to speak. True. So yeah, that makes total sense. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you can kind of add for people who might have some, questions right now, or looking to get started in crowdfunding but are intimidated by it?
Absolutely. I would say get started as soon as possible, even if you do not have a plan or you don't know what a plan might be. But I would say that's exactly what I said at the very beginning, but that's the core of crowdfunding. Start either mentally, building or identifying. That's what you could do. You could identify your community or your audience, because it actually also covers the mistakes, the one thing you don't want to do. Even if you communicate with your audience, you have your audience, you don't want to treat your audience as one uniform entity. So you may want to start thinking of, okay, I have people around me, and who are they? How am I connected to them? How do I communicate with them? And start think, who could be your team? Who could promote your campaign? Who could be a potential influencer? I would say start mapping out people, because crowdfunding is about people, and you can't do it, and it always goes back to people.
Yeah. If
this helps.
No, that's great advice. Those are great tips. I think a lot of people find value in that. I think crowdfunding is very intimidating, and you see it everywhere, but you also see it unsuccessful. So I think it's very intimidating for people to see that, and it kind of prohibits them from moving forward with it, and probably overthinking it quite a bit, just because it is so intimidating. What are you working on now?
Okay, right now I'm preparing a campaign. I'm collaborating with a female filmmaker. As a female filmmaker, because I introduced myself as a crowdfunding strategist, but I did talk about my filmmaking journey. I do still collaborate, and I do get attached to projects as a producer. And it's a project I'm a producer as well, associate producer, because I just got joined recently. And it's a very small campaign, but it's a campaign I believe in. It's a documentary about a community of women in a remote town in Peru. And it's about symbolic violence, it's about gender equity, and these are the topics actually I feel strongly about. Wow. So we are just before the launch. We are in the pre-launch. We've been in the pre-launch for the past 6 weeks, and we are about to launch it in 2 days. So it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you all night, so I wanted to thank you again for taking the time out of your day to join me on this live episode here. And anybody who is looking for a crowdfunding strategist, needs help with their campaign, and is looking for someone to bring on board, I will put Kasia's contact information below. So feel free to shoot her a message, email, whatever you need to do to get her on board. So thank you again. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We did have some people tune in, so that's always good. But we'll see you guys next week. Kasia, thank you again.
Thank you
so much. And we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.